Jake Miller stepped off the transport ship and looked around with wide eyes. He had never seen anything like this place before. The space station was huge, made of shining crystal that seemed to glow with its own light. It floated in the empty space between stars. Far from any planet or sundot, this was Nexus Academy, the most famous school in the galaxy. Students came here from hundreds of different worlds to learn together. Jake carried only an old backpack and a small computer pad. Inside the pad was his acceptance letter, something he still could not believe was real. All around him, alien students walked and talked in languages that sounded like music. His translator device worked hard to change their words into English in his ear. Some students looked almost human, but had blue skin or extra arms. Others were so strange that Jake could not even guess what they were. A tall creature that looked like a giant praying mantis walked toward him. Its 4 arms moved in a way that seemed both graceful and scary. Jake tried not to step back as it came closer. "You must be the human," the creature said in a voice that sounded like wind through. "Metal, I am Dean Korthik. Welcome to Nexus Academy." Jake nodded and tried to look confident. "Thank you, sir. I am Jake Miller from Earth." The dean's large eyes studied Jake carefully. "Yes, Earth, a Class 12 Deathworld. Most unusual for us to accept a student from such a place." The way he said it made Jake feel like he was some kind of dangerous animal. "I will do my best to prove I belong here," Jake said. Dean Korthik made a sound that might have been laughing. "We shall see. Your room assignment is with a Nebulari student named Zix. Good luck communicating with the gas cloud." Jake was led through halls that were bigger than any building he had ever seen on Earth. The walls were covered with symbols and pictures from different worlds. Other students stopped to stare at him as he passed. Some looked curious, others seemed afraid. His room was small but clean, with 2 beds and a large window that showed the stars outside. One bed was normal, but the other was just a glass box filled with swirling colored gas. As Jake watched, the gas began to move and change colors. "Hello," Jake said, not sure if he was talking to his roommate or just air. The gas swirled faster and turned bright blue. Jake's translator crackled to life. "Greetings, solid creature. I am Zix. You are the human from the dangerous world? I am Jake from Earth. Nice to meet you, Zix." The gas turned yellow and green. "Your form is so strange. You stay the same shape all the time. How do you think when you cannot flow and change?" Jake smiled for the first time since arriving. "I guess I never thought about it that way." The next morning, Jake went to his first class. The classroom was full of students that looked like nothing he had ever imagined. Some floated in the air. Others had tentacles instead of arms, and a few seemed to be made of living crystal. The teacher was a being that looked like a tall, thin woman but with silver skin and no hair. She spoke in a voice that sounded like singing. "Today we will discuss the basics of galactic civilization," she said. "Can anyone tell me why most worlds in the galaxy are peaceful?" A student that looked like a walking tree raised one of its branches. "Because we have evolved past the need for violence, Professor Voss." "Correct. Violence is a sign of primitive thinking. Only the most backward worlds still have wars and fighting." Jake felt his face get hot. He knew she was talking about Earth without saying it directly. His home world was always fighting. People died every day in wars that seemed to never end. After class, Jake walked to the cafeteria. The food was strange. Some of it glowed, some of it moved, and some of it looked like colored water. He picked items that looked safe and sat down. At an empty table, 3 students walked over to his table. They looked almost human, but had larger heads and pale white skin. Their eyes were huge and dark. "You are the human," one of them said. It was not a question. "Yes," Jake replied. I am Quinn 7. These are my study partners. We have heard about your world. It is very primitive. Jake felt angry, but tried to stay calm. We are learning and growing, just like everyone else. No, Quinn 7 said, your people still fight wars. Your world is dying from pollution and violence. You have no business being here with civilized beings. Maybe my world is not perfect, Jake said, standing up. But we do not give up. We keep trying to be better. Quinn 7 laughed, a sound like glass breaking. Trying is not enough. This academy is for the best minds in the galaxy, not for charity. Cases from dangerous worlds. Jake felt his hands make fists, but he forced himself to relax. Fighting would only prove what they already thought about humans. I will show you that I belong here, Jake said quietly. We shall see, Quinn 7 replied, and walked away with the other students. That night, Jake lay in his bed looking out at the stars. Zix floated nearby, changing colors slowly in what Jake was learning meant the gas being was thinking. The Cerebrids are very smart, Zix said finally. But they do not understand everything. What do you mean? Jake asked. They think being smart means knowing many facts. But there are different kinds of smart. You have lived through things they cannot imagine. That teaches lessons no book can give. Jake smiled in the darkness. Maybe he had found a friend after all. The next day brought new challenges. In mathematics class, Jake struggled with problems that other students solved easily. His Earth education had focused on survival, not complex theory. But when the teacher asked them to design a bridge across a dangerous river, Jake's design was the only one that would actually work. Interesting, the teacher said, looking at Jake's simple but strong design. Most students make their bridges too complex. You have made yours to last. Jake felt proud for the first time since arriving. Maybe there was something valuable about growing up on a dangerous world after all. As the days passed, Jake began to understand that his biggest challenge would not be the classes or the strange food. It would be proving to everyone, including himself, that a human from Earth could belong among the stars. 3 weeks had passed since Jake arrived at Nexus Academy. Every day brought new challenges that made him feel stupid and lost. The math classes were the worst. While other students solved problems in minutes, Jake stared at equations that looked like alien writing. The quantum field fluctuations can be calculated using the Zephyrian method, Professor Corlin explained to the class. The lizard-like teacher drew symbols on the board that glowed and moved by themselves. Jake copied the symbols into his notebook, but they meant nothing to him. Around him, students nodded and whispered to each other about how obvious the solution was. Jake felt like he was drowning in a sea of knowledge he would never understand. Quinn 7 turned around in his seat and smiled at Jake. It was not a friendly smile. Having trouble, human? Perhaps you should return to your primitive world where such advanced thinking is not required. Jake's face burned with shame, but he said nothing. He had learned that arguing with Quinn 7 only made things worse. After class, Jake walked slowly to his next lesson. Dr. Liravas taught xenobiology, the study of life forms from different worlds. She was one of the few teachers who did not look at Jake like he was a mistake. Today we will discuss gravitational mechanics, Dr. Voss announced as students took their seats. Specifically, how different species navigate through areas of unstable gravity. She showed them a hologram of a space region filled with swirling gravity fields. This is the Maelstrom sector. Ships that enter here often become lost or destroyed. For 50 years, scientists have tried to find a safe path through it. Jake watched the swirling patterns in the hologram. They reminded him of something, but he could not remember what. The problem is that gravity fields change constantly, Dr. Voss continued. Mathematical models can predict some changes, but not all. Who can suggest a solution? Several students raised their hands. A crystalline being named Xeris spoke first. We could use quantum computers to calculate all possible variables. Good idea, but quantum computers are not fast enough. Dr. Voss replied. A floating jellyfish-like creature suggested using psychic powers to sense the gravity changes. Dr. Voss shook her head. Psychic abilities do not work well in high-energy environments. Jake stared at the hologram, and suddenly he remembered what it reminded him of. When he was 8 years old, his city had been hit by a terrible earthquake. Buildings fell like dominoes, and the ground cracked open in long lines. Jake had run through the chaos, dodging falling debris and jumping over cracks in the street. He had not thought about where to run. He had just felt where it was safe to go. Slowly, Jake raised his hand. Dr. Voss looked surprised. Yes, Jake? What if you do not try to predict whether gravity will change? Jake asked. What if you just react to it as it happens? The classroom became quiet. Quinn 7 laughed. That is not scientific. You cannot navigate by feelings. But what if you could? Jake stood up, excited now. Look at the pattern. The gravity. Fields move like falling rocks. If you have been in an earthquake, you learn to feel where the next rock will fall. Dr. Voss moved closer to the hologram. Explain more. Jake pointed at the swirling fields. See how this one pushes against that one? Just like when a building falls, it pushes other buildings. You do not need to calculate everything. You just need to feel the rhythm. That is ridiculous, Quinn 7 said. Navigation requires precise calculations. Does it? Dr. Voss asked. She looked at Jake with new interest. On your world, how do you avoid falling objects? You do not think about it, Jake said. You just move. Your body learns to feel danger before your mind knows it. Is there? Dr. Voss nodded slowly. Intuitive navigation. Using instinct instead of mathematics. She turned to the class. This is actually a very advanced concept. Some species navigate by instinct, but we have always thought it was less accurate than mathematical methods. Because it is, Quinn 7 insisted. Is it? Dr. Voss smiled. Jake, your world has many natural disasters, correct? Yes, ma'am. Earthquakes, storms, floods. The ground moves and the sky falls. And humans survive these disasters how? We learn to feel them coming. We move before we think about moving. Dr. Voss was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned to the class. I want everyone to research intuitive navigation for next week. Jake, please stay after class. When the other students left, Dr. Voss sat down next to Jake. Tell me about your world. Jake was not sure where to start. It is dangerous. The ground shakes and breaks. The weather changes quickly. People fight. Wars over food and water. How do children learn to survive? They watch and learn. If you think too long about danger, you die. You must move fast and trust your feelings. Dr. Voss nodded. Your world has taught you something that most galactic species have forgotten. We have become so focused on thinking that we have lost our ability to feel. But I am terrible at math and science, Jake said. You are terrible at our way of doing math and science, Dr. Voss corrected. But you understand things in a different way. That could be very valuable. That evening, Jake sat in his room with Zix. His roommate was a soft blue color, which Jake had learned meant Zix was happy. The Cerebrids are talking about you, Zix said. They are angry that Dr. Voss praised your idea. Why do they hate me so much? Jake asked. Because you are different. They have spent their lives believing that their way of thinking is the only right way. You show them that there are other ways to be smart. Jake looked out the window at the stars. Sometimes I think they are right. Maybe I do not belong here. Do you want to go home? Zix asked. Jake thought about Earth, the broken cities, the endless wars, The people who had no hope for a better future. No, I want to stay and learn. But I also want to prove that humans can be valuable to the galaxy. Then you must find a way to show them what you can do, Zix said. Not their way, but your way. The next day, Jake decided to try something different. Instead of copying what other students did, he would solve problems the way a human would dot in engineering class. They were asked to design a shelter that could survive on a hostile planet, while other students made complex structures with force, fields and energy shields. Jake designed something simple. It was low to the ground, with thick walls and multiple escape routes. This is very basic, the teacher said, looking at Jake's design. But it will work, Jake replied. When everything else fails, simple things keep working. The teacher ran a computer simulation of different disasters hitting the shelters. The fancy designs with lots of technology failed one by one. Jake's simple shelter survived everything the computer could throw at it. Interesting, the teacher said. Very interesting. Word began to spread through the academy. The human student was different, but maybe different was not always bad. Quinn 7 was not happy about this. He came to Jake's table at lunch with his friends. You think you are clever, Quinn 7 said, but tricks and luck will not help you pass the real tests. I am not trying to trick anyone, Jake said. I am just trying to learn. Learn what? How to be primitive. How to think like an animal. Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. I am learning that there are many ways to solve problems. Maybe my way is not better than yours, but it is different. Different is not enough, Queen 7 said. This academy is for the best minds in the galaxy, not for refugees from dying worlds. Jake stood up. My world may be dying, but my people are not. We survive things that would kill others. We find ways to live when everything seems hopeless. Maybe that is not book learning, but it is still learning. Quinn 7 laughed. Survival is not intelligence. Is it not? Jake asked. Then why are humans still alive when so many other species would have died on our world? For the first time, Quinn 7 did not have a quick answer. He stared at Jake for a moment, then walked away with his friends. That night, Dr. Voss came to Jake's room. I have been thinking about what you said in class. Would you be interested in working with me on a research project? Jake could not believe what he was hearing. You want to work with me? I want to study how Deathworld species develop different types of intelligence. You could help me understand how survival thinking works. Jake smiled. I would like that. Very much. As Dr. Voss left, Jake felt something he had not felt since arriving at the academy. He felt hope. Maybe he was different from the other students, but maybe that was exactly what the galaxy needed. The announcement came during breakfast. Commander Rax, a scarred alien warrior with metal plates covering half his face, stood at the front of the cafeteria. All students must take the Extreme Environment Survival course, he said in a voice like grinding stone. This class will test your ability to survive in the harshest conditions the galaxy can offer. Jake looked around the cafeteria. Most students had stopped eating and were staring at the commander with fear in their eyes. Even Quinn 7 looked worried. A first test will be in 3 days, Commander Rax continued. You will be dropped into a simulated Arctic environment. You must survive for 24 hours with only basic supplies. Failure means you repeat the entire semester. Jake felt a strange excitement. For the first time since arriving at Nexus Academy, he was facing something. He understood. Cold, hunger, and survival. These were things he knew. That evening, Jake sat with Zix and his other friends in their study group. Luna, a crystalline being who looked like living diamond, was shaking with fear. I cannot handle cold, Luna said. My species comes from a desert world. Cold temperatures will slow my thinking and make me brittle. Corvin, a proud warrior from Altair, pounded his fist on the table. I am not afraid of cold, but I have never needed to find food or shelter. Warriors are provided for. The mortality rate for this course is 30%, Zig said, changing to a worried purple color. Many students do not finish. Jake looked at his friends. They were all smart, much smarter than him in most ways. But they had grown up on safe worlds where everything was provided for them. I can help you, Jake said quietly. How? Corvin asked. I know cold. I know hunger. I know what it means to survive when everything goes wrong. The next day, Jake spent his free time teaching his friends basic survival skills. He showed them how to layer clothing to stay warm, how to find water, and how to build shelter from whatever materials they could find. The most important thing, Jake explained, is to stay calm. Fear makes you do stupid things. When you are scared, you use energy too fast and make bad decisions. Luna was still worried. But what if I cannot move quickly enough? Then you let others move for you, Jake said. Survival is not about being the strongest or fastest. It is about using what you have and helping each other. When the day of the test arrived, Jake felt ready. The transport ship took all the students to a simulation chamber that was bigger than a city. Inside, it was freezing cold with deep snow and howling wind. Commander Rex stood in the snow wearing only light clothing. He did not seem bothered by the cold at all. You have 24 hours, he announced. You must build shelter, find food, and survive. Emergency beacons will teleport you out if you are dying, but using them means you fail. Jake looked around. The landscape was white and empty, except for some scattered rocks and dead trees. Most of the other students were already shivering. Stay together, Jake told his friends. We are stronger as a group. While other students scattered to look for the best spots, Jake led his group to an area where the wind was blocked by large rocks. He showed them how to dig a shelter in the snow and how to use their body heat to stay warm. Snow is a good insulator, he explained as they worked. If we build the walls right, it will keep us warm. Corvin was amazed. You are building a house from frozen water? Not a house, a survival shelter. It only needs to keep us alive, not comfortable. As night fell, the temperature dropped even more. Jake could hear other students crying and calling for help in the distance. Some had already used their emergency beacons. Jake's group huddled together in their snow shelter. It was not warm, but it was much better than being outside. I am still cold, Luna said. Her crystal body was dimmer than usual. That is normal, Jake said. Being cold is not the same as dying from cold. Your body is working to keep you alive. How do you know so much about this? Corvin asked. Jake was quiet for a moment. When I was 10, my city was hit by a terrible winter storm. The power went out and the heating stopped working. My family and I survived in our basement for 6 days with no heat and very little food. What did you do? Zix asked. We stayed together. We shared our body heat. We ate very little and moved. Very little to save energy. And we never gave up hope. The next morning, Jake woke up to find that several more students had failed during the night. But his group was still alive and strong. Now we need to find food, Jake said. He showed them how to recognize edible plants under the snow and how to set simple traps for small animals. His friends were amazed at how he could see things they missed. You notice everything, Luna said. On my world, you have to, Jake replied. If you do not notice danger, you die. If you do not notice food, you starve. When the 24 hours were up, Commander Rax found Jake's group building a fire and cooking a meal they had caught and gathered. While many other students were barely alive, Jake's group looked healthy and strong. Impressive, Commander Rax said. Human, you have done well. We all did well, Jake said. We worked together. Commander Rax nodded. That is the most important. Lesson of survival. Individual strength means nothing if you cannot work with others. Back at the academy, news of Jake's success spread quickly. Students who had laughed at him before now looked at him with respect. Even some of the teachers began to see him differently, but not everyone was happy. Queen 7 was angry that a primitive human had done better than many advanced species. You were lucky, Queen 7 told Jake. Survival is not intelligence. Any animal can survive. Maybe, Jake said. But I did not just survive. I helped others survive too. Is that not what intelligence is for? Dr. Voss was very interested in Jake's performance. She asked him to explain exactly how he had known. What to do? I did not think about it, Jake said. I just felt what was right. The cold, the wind, the snow. They told me where to build shelter and how to stay warm. You read the environment like a book, Dr. Voss said. Most galactic species have lost that ability. We rely on technology to tell us about our surroundings. Technology is good, Jake said. But what happens when it fails? Then you die, Dr. Voss replied. Unless you have the skills you learned. On your Deathworld. The next test was even harder. Commander Rax announced that the final exam would take place on a real derelict space station. The station was infested with dangerous creatures that ate metal and attacked anything that moved. This is not a simulation, Commander Rax warned. The danger is real. You will work in teams of 4. Your mission is to restore power to the station's main reactor and escape within 72 hours. Jake's team included Zix, Corvin, Luna, and himself. As their transport ship approached the dead station, Jake could see that it was badly damaged. Holes were torn in the hull, and whole sections were missing. This looks like a war zone, Corvin said. It is, Jake replied. Just like home. Inside the station, the air was cold and thin. Emergency lights flickered weakly, casting strange shadows. Everywhere. Jake could hear something moving in the walls, scratching and clicking sounds that made everyone nervous. Stay close, Jake whispered. Watch for movement. These creatures hunt by sound and vibration. Their first encounter with the station's inhabitants came quickly. A creature that looked like a giant mechanical spider dropped from the ceiling, its metal teeth gleaming in the dim light. While his friends froze in fear, Jake moved without thinking. He grabbed a piece of broken pipe and swung it at the creature's legs. The pipe broke, but the creature stumbled long enough for the team to run. How did you know to do that? Luna asked as they caught their breath. I did not know, Jake said. I just did what felt right. When something attacks you, you attack back. As they moved deeper into the station, Jake's instincts kept them alive. He could sense when the creatures were near and knew which passages were safe to use. You are like a hunter, Corvin said with admiration. Everyone on my world is a hunter. Jake replied, we hunt for food, for safety, for hope. If you cannot hunt, you cannot survive. When they finally reached the reactor room, they found Luna's specialty, advanced technology. But the creatures had damaged the controls badly. I can fix this, Luna said. But I need time and no interruptions. You will have both, Jake promised. For the next 6 hours, Jake and Corvin fought off wave after wave of creatures while Luna worked on the reactor. Jake's Deathworld experience showed him how to use the station's broken machinery as weapons and how to predict where the creatures would attack. When the reactor finally came online, filling the station with light and warmth, the creatures retreated to the darker sections. Jake's team had completed their mission with time to spare. Commander Rex met them at the docking bay. Outstanding work, he said. Human, you have shown that survival skills are just as valuable as any other form of intelligence. That night, Jake sat with his friends in the cafeteria. Other students came to their table to congratulate them and asked Jake for advice. "You have changed things here," Six said, glowing with pride. "Students are starting to understand that there are different ways to be smart." Jake smiled. "I am still learning too. Every day I understand more about the galaxy and my place in it." But he also knew that his biggest challenges were still ahead. Success had made him new friends, but it had also made him new enemies. The trouble began on a Tuesday morning. Jake was walking to his first class when he noticed that other students were staring at him more than usual. Some looked worried, others looked angry. By the time he reached the classroom, he knew something was wrong. Dean Korthik was waiting for him with a tall, elegant alien Jake had never seen before. The stranger wore official robes covered in symbols that seemed to shift and change as Jake watched. "Jake Miller," Dean Korthik said. "This is Ambassador Thren from the Galactic Council. He has come to discuss your status at this academy." Ambassador Thren looked at Jake with cold silver eyes. "So you are the human from the Deathworld. I have heard many disturbing reports about you." "Disturbing?" Jake asked. "What have I done wrong?" "You have demonstrated dangerous and violent tendencies," Ambassador Thren replied. "Fighting creatures with improvised weapons, teaching other students combat techniques, solving problems through aggression rather than peaceful means." Jake felt his heart sink. "I was trying to protect my friends. I was trying to survive." "Exactly," Ambassador Thren said. "You think like a predator, not like a civilized being. Many members of the Galactic Council believe that humans are too dangerous to be allowed into galactic society." Dr. Voss entered the room, looking angry. "Ambassador, Jake has done nothing wrong. He has shown remarkable intelligence and adaptability." "He has shown animal cunning," Ambassador Thren replied. "There is a difference, is there?" Dr. Voss asked. "Or are you afraid of a type of intelligence you do not understand?" Ambassador Thren's eyes narrowed. "I am afraid of nothing, but I am concerned about the safety of other students. This human's presence has already caused several incidents." "What incidents?" Jake asked. Dean Korthik looked uncomfortable. "There have been complaints. Some students say you are too aggressive, too willing to use force. Others say you make them feel unsafe." Jake knew who was making these complaints. Quinn 7 and his friends had been spreading rumors about him for weeks. "I have never hurt anyone," Jake said. "I have only helped people." "You have changed the dynamic of this academy, Ambassador," Thren said. "Before you arrived, students solved problems through logic and cooperation. Now they are learning to fight and compete." "Maybe that is not a bad thing," Dr. Voss said. "Maybe this academy has been too sheltered from reality." "Reality?" Ambassador Thren laughed. "Reality is peace and civilization. What this human represents is chaos and barbarism." Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. Getting angry would only prove their point. "What do you want me to do?" Jake asked quietly. "I want you to submit to a formal evaluation," Ambassador Thren said. "You will be tested to determine if you meet the standards of galactic citizenship. If you fail, you will be expelled and humans will be banned from all galactic institutions." Jake felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. It was not just about him anymore. It was about the future of his entire species. "I accept," Jake said. The news spread through the academy like wildfire. Within hours, everyone knew that Jake would face the trial of citizenship, a series of tests that would determine whether he was fit to remain among civilized beings. Jake's friends gathered in his room that evening. Zix was a deep red color, which meant he was worried. Luna's crystal body was dim with fear. Even Corvin looked concerned. "This is not fair," Corvin said. "You have done nothing wrong." "Fair does not matter," Jake replied. "What matters is that I pass these tests." "What will the tests be?" Zix asked. 3 parts, Jake said. A test of knowledge, a test of diplomacy, and a test of character. I have to pass all 3. You will, Luna said. You are smarter than they think. I hope so, Jake said. Because if I fail, no other human will ever get the chance to prove themselves. The first test came 2 days later. Jake sat in a room filled with holographic displays, showing complex equations, star charts, and scientific diagrams. He had to answer questions about galactic history, advanced mathematics, and interstellar law. Jake struggled with many of the questions. His Earth education had not prepared him for the detailed knowledge of galactic civilization. But he did his best, using logic and common sense when he did not know the exact answers. When the test was over, Ambassador Thren reviewed the results with a satisfied smile. As expected, the human shows significant gaps in his knowledge. However, his reasoning abilities are adequate. He passes the first test barely. The second test was about diplomacy. Jake was presented with a complex scenario involving a trade dispute between 3 different alien species. Each species had different needs and cultural values that seemed impossible to reconcile. The other students who had taken this test before had tried to find mathematical solutions that would satisfy everyone equally. But Jake remembered something from his childhood on Earth. He had grown up in refugee camps where dozens of different cultures lived together. He had watched his mother mediate disputes between people who spoke different languages and followed different customs. She had taught him that sometimes the best solution was not the fairest one, but the one that let everyone keep their dignity. Jake proposed a solution that gave each species what they needed most, even if it was not exactly equal. He showed how the trade could benefit everyone in different ways, and how the differences between the species could be strengths rather than problems. Ambassador Thren was surprised by Jake's answer. This is not the standard diplomatic solution. Maybe. That is why it works, Jake said. Standard solutions are for standard problems. This is not a standard problem. The third test was the hardest. Jake was placed in a simulation where he had to choose between saving his friends or completing a crucial mission. In the scenario, a space station was about to explode. He could either rescue his teammates or prevent the explosion from destroying. A nearby colony. Every other student who had taken this test had chosen the mission. They had calculated that saving many lives was more important than saving a few. It was the logical choice, but Jake refused to accept that choice. He studied the simulation carefully, looking for options that others had missed. He remembered what his survival training had taught him, that there was always another way, if you were willing to think differently. Instead of choosing between his friends and the mission, Jake found a way to do both. He used his knowledge of the station systems to create a controlled explosion that would destroy the dangerous parts while leaving the rest intact. Then he used the explosion's force to boost his ship's speed so he could rescue his friends and reach the colony in time. The simulation ended with everyone alive, and the mission completed. Ambassador Thren stared at the results in disbelief. This should not be possible. The scenario was designed to force a choice. Maybe the scenario was wrong, Jake said. Maybe there are always more choices than we think. You refuse to accept limitations, Ambassador Thren said. You break rules and ignore established procedures. I find solutions, Jake replied. Is that not what intelligence is for? The results of the trial were announced the next day. Jake had passed all 3 tests, but barely. Ambassador Thren was clearly unhappy with the outcome. You have met the minimum requirements, he said. But I remain concerned about your influence on other students. What influence? Dr. Voss asked. She had been watching the trial with great interest. Before this human arrived, students were peaceful and cooperative. Now they ask questions about combat, survival, and alternative solutions. They are becoming restless and aggressive. Jake looked around the room. Many students had gathered to hear the results of his trial. He saw faces he recognized, some friendly, some hostile, but all interested in what would happen next. Maybe asking questions is good, Jake said. Maybe students should learn about more than just books and theories. Knowledge is dangerous. In the wrong hands, Ambassador Thren replied. Your species has proven that by destroying your own world. Jake felt anger flash through him, but he controlled it. My world has problems, yes, but we also have hope. We keep fighting to make things better, even when everything seems hopeless. Fighting, Ambassador Thren said with disgust. Always. Fighting. That is exactly what I mean. Sometimes fighting is necessary, Jake said. Not with weapons or violence, but fighting against giving up. Fighting to find better ways. Fighting to protect the people you care about. Quinn 7 stepped forward from the crowd of students. The human is dangerous, he said. He teaches primitive solutions to complex problems. He makes other students think that aggression is acceptable. Is that true? Ambassador Thren asked. Do you teach violence? I teach survival, Jake replied. I teach that when everything goes wrong, you do not give up. You find a way to keep going. And if that way involves hurting others? Jake thought carefully before answering. On my world, we have a saying, the strong protect the weak, and the wise protect everyone. Violence should be the last choice, not the first. But sometimes it is the only choice between life and death. Ambassador Thren was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I will allow you to remain at this academy, but under strict conditions. You will be monitored at all times. Any sign of aggressive behavior will result in immediate expulsion. That is not fair, Corvin protested. Jake has done nothing wrong. The decision has been made, Ambassador Thren said. The Huma. The explosions grew louder as Jake ran through the corridors of Nexus Academy. Emergency lights flashed red, and he could hear the sound of metal tearing somewhere above him. Other students ran past him, crying and confused, heading for the emergency. Shelters. Jake reached the main shelter to find hundreds of students huddled together in fear. Teachers tried to keep everyone calm, but Jake could see the worry in their eyes. They had no idea what was happening. Jake! Zix called out, floating over to him in bright yellow patterns of relief. We thought you were hurt. I am fine, Jake sighed, looking around the shelter. But we are not safe here. What do you mean? Luna asked. Her crystal body was flickering with nervous energy. Jake listened to the sounds coming from above. Those explosions are getting closer. Whatever is attacking us is moving through the station systematically. Dean Korthik stood at the front of the shelter, trying to project calm authority. Students, please remain quiet. The station's defense systems will protect us. Jake shook his head. The station does not have real defense systems. This is a school, not a military base. Commander Rax pushed through the crowd toward Jake. The scarred warrior looked grim. Human, what do you think is happening? We are being hunted, Jake said. The pattern of attacks, the way they are moving through the station, these are not random strikes. Someone is looking for something. Looking for what? Commander Rax asked. Jake met his eyes. US, the students, or maybe just me. Another explosion rocked the station, much closer this time. The lights went out completely, leaving them in darkness except for the emergency strips along the floor. The main power is gone, someone called out. Jake's mind raced. In the dark, with no power and no defenses, they were helpless. But he had grown up in places where the power failed regularly and danger was always present. We need to move, Jake said. This shelter is a trap. If they find us here, we have nowhere to run. Move where? Dean Corthick demanded. This is the safest place on the station. Safe from accidents, maybe. Not safe from attack. Commander Rax nodded slowly. The human is right. We are trapped here. I know a way, Jake said. The maintenance tunnels. I explored them during my first week here. Those tunnels are dangerous, Dean Corthick protested. Students are not allowed in them. Dangerous from who? Jake asked. From safety regulations? Right now, I think we have bigger problems. Another explosion, and this time they could hear the sound of approaching footsteps in the corridor outside. They are coming, Jake whispered. Commander Rax drew a weapon from his belt. I will hold them off. Get the students to safety. No, Jake said. If you fight them here, you will die. And then they will find us anyway. What do you suggest? Commander Rax asked. We split up. Small groups moving through different routes. Harder to catch, harder to track. Dean Corthick looked shocked. Split up? That goes against all emergency procedures. Your procedures are for normal emergencies, Jake said. This is not normal. The sound of footsteps was getting closer. Jake could hear voices speaking in a language his translator could not understand. Decide. Now, Jake said urgently. Commander Rax made the choice. Do it. Small groups, different routes. Meet at the emergency docking bay. The shelter erupted into controlled chaos as students formed groups and prepared to move. Jake gathered his closest. Friends, Zix, Luna, Corvin, and surprisingly, several students who had never talked to him before. Why are you following me? Jake asked one of them, a nervous Meridian named Plex. Because you are the only one who seems to know what to do, Plex replied. Jake led his group into the maintenance tunnels, just as the attackers broke into the main shelter. Behind them, they could hear shouts and the sound of energy weapons firing. The tunnels were dark and narrow, barely big enough for most of the alien students. Jake moved quickly but carefully, using his sense of direction and memory to navigate. The maze of passages. How do you know where you are going? Corvin whispered. I learned the layout when I first arrived, Jake said. On my world, you always learn multiple escape routes from any building you enter. They crawled through the tunnels for what felt like hours. Behind them, they could hear their pursuers searching, but the tunnel system was too complex to search. Quickly, finally, they reached a maintenance hatch near the docking bay. Jake carefully opened it, then looked out. The area was empty, but he could see scorch marks on the walls from weapons fire. Wait here, Jake told the others. He climbed out, alone, and checked the area carefully. His Deathworld instincts told him something was wrong, but he could not see any immediate danger. One by one, his group climbed out of the tunnels. Other groups began arriving from different directions. Jake was relieved to see that most of the students had made it to safety, but their relief was short-lived. As the last group arrived, dark figures appeared from the shadows around the docking bay. The attackers had been waiting for them. The figures wore black armor that seemed to absorb light. Their faces were hidden behind masks, but Jake could see their weapons, advanced energy rifles that hummed with deadly power. Nobody move, one of the attackers said in perfect galactic standard. We are only here for the human. All eyes turned to Jake. He felt the weight of everyone's stares, but he was not surprised. He had suspected this was about him. What do you want with me? Jake asked, stepping forward. You have caused quite a stir in the galaxy, the leader said. Some people think you represent a new hope for cooperation between species. Others think you represent a threat to galactic peace. Which do you think? Jake asked. We think you represent opportunity, the leader replied. There are those who would pay well to study a human from a Deathworld. To learn your secrets? Jake felt cold anger rise in his chest. I am not for sale? Everyone is for sale, the leader said. The question is just the price. Let the others go. Jake said. "Your problem is with me." "Actually, our problem is with all of you," the leader said. "Witnesses are inconvenient." Jake realized with horror that these attackers planned to kill everyone, not just capture him. He looked around at his friends, his teachers, even at students like Quinn7 who had treated him badly. They were all in danger because of him. But Jake had learned something important during his time at the academy. He had learned that intelligence came in many forms, and that sometimes the best solution was not the obvious one. "You made a mistake," Jake said to the leader. "What mistake?" "You assumed that, because this is a school, no one here knows how to fight." Jake moved faster than the attackers expected. His Deathworld reflexes, honed by years of dodging falling debris and surviving sudden attacks, served him well. He rolled behind a piece of equipment as energy bolts fired where he had been standing. "Now!" Jake shouted. Commander Rax had been waiting for the signal. The old warrior emerged from cover with his weapon firing. Other teachers and older students who had military training joined the fight. But it was not just the trained fighters who responded. Students like Corvin used their species' natural strength to attack with improvised weapons. Luna used her crystal body to reflect energy bolts back at the attackers. Even Zix helped by forming clouds that blocked the attackers' vision. Jake realized that his time at the academy had changed more than just himself. He had taught other students that sometimes you had to fight for what you believed in. That sometimes being civilized meant being willing to defend civilization. The battle was brief, but intense. The attackers had expected easy targets, not organized resistance. When more academy security arrived, the attackers found themselves outnumbered and out-fought. The leader of the attackers lay wounded on the floor. "This is not over," he said to Jake. "Others will come. Let them come," Jake replied. "We will be ready." In the days that followed, the attack on Nexus Academy sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Ambassador Thren returned to investigate, but his attitude toward Jake had changed completely. "Your actions saved hundreds of lives," the ambassador said. "Perhaps I was wrong about the value of Deathworld thinking." "Maybe you were not wrong," Jake said. "Maybe you were just incomplete. There are many kinds of intelligence, and the galaxy needs all of them." Dr. Voss published her research on Deathworld cognitive adaptation, which became the most important xenopsychology paper in decades. The Galactic Council voted to establish the Human Integration Program, bringing carefully selected humans to institutions across the galaxy. Jake graduated from Nexus Academy with the highest honors ever awarded to a first-year student. His graduation speech was broadcast throughout the galaxy. "I came here as a refugee from a dangerous world," Jake said to the assembled crowd. "I thought I was here to learn from you. But I discovered that learning goes both ways. You taught me about science and mathematics and the wonders of galactic civilization. I hope I taught you that strength comes not from avoiding challenges, but from facing them together." As Jake prepared to enter the Galactic Diplomatic Corps, he received a message from Earth. His younger sister Amy had been accepted to Nexus Academy, along with 20 other humans, the first official class of human students. Jake stood on the Academy's observation deck one last time, looking out at the stars. Zix floated beside him, glowing with contentment. "Do you ever regret leaving Earth?" Zix asked. Jake thought about his dangerous home world, with its wars and disasters, and then